This is a list of all Gobblegum effects in Black Ops 6 Zombies, including how to get them, the best way to use them, the best combinations, and even some Gobblegum pack recommendations so that you guys can use the best ones in your matches. If that sounds good to you, then hit that like button for me and we'll get started. Now, I want to do this video in alphabetical order, but there's just one or two that I want to show you first because they're so good together. So let's start the list with Free Fire. This lasts 60 seconds, and it means that weapons you fire consume no ammo. And so obviously, if you just want to free fire, that's great, that's all good, but I've got synergies all through this video that I want to show you guys, and this is one of the best ones. So if you put on like a free fire, maybe you get an insta-kill with Killjoy, maybe you do a double points with Who's Keeping Score, maybe you whack on a profit sharing as well, and a temporal for all of the above, you're gonna end up earning like 10,000 points or more in like 20 seconds. Like, it's absolutely crazy how much you can earn with this. And it all boils down to the fact that you don't have to reload thanks to that free fire. So you can just get kill after kill and more and more and more points. And I know we haven't gotten to Who's Keeping Score and stuff like that yet, but we'll get there later in the list. So let's go back to our alphabetical order and start with Anywhere But Here. This is a rare Gobblegum that instantly teleports you to a random location. And when you land, a concussive blast is going to knock away any other nearby zombies, which is great because you don't want to teleport somewhere and then be in the middle of a horde already and just die. So the fact that it does that concussion is so useful and overall makes this Gobblegum one of the best in the game in my opinion, because it's an instant get out of jail free card anytime the zombies are overwhelming you and you just need to escape in a heartbeat. Next is Arsenal Accelerator. This is a rare Gobblegum and it charges the player's field upgrade faster. Now, we're going to do a comparison here of what it looks like charging your field upgrade from 0 charge, both with the Gobblegum on and the Gobblegum off. And we'll get the same number of kills in both these clips here, and you can see the difference that it makes. And it lasts for 5 minutes as well, which makes this a really strong and useful Gobblegum to just run almost day to day, like a commonplace kind of usage, because you get a lot of benefit out of it, and especially during a boss fight when you're trying to get more healing aura charges, for example, and revive your friends, it could come in extremely clutch. Next, we have Cashback, which is a rare Gobblegum which spawns a max ammo power-up. And this is a fairly obvious one, I would say. It works exactly how you'd expect, but I'd recommend you don't use it in scenarios where you could easily just buy yourself that ammo instead. But if you've got like a really rare weapon, like a ray gun, for example, that ammo is going to be more expensive once it's pack-a-punch and stuff. And so that might be a good scenario to whack out the Cashback. Next is our first legendary Gobblegum. It's Crate Power. For this, the next weapon taken from the mystery box comes pack-a-punched. And so the synergies for this are pretty obvious. In scenarios where you know you're going to be getting a wonder weapon out of the box, for instance, you can combine it with Crate Power to get a packed wonder weapon instead. But beyond that, it's pretty self-explanatory. Next is Exit Strategy. This is an epic Gobblegum, and it activates an exfil vote immediately. And it then says reduces zombie spawns during exfil. Now, I think this Gobblegum is actually low-key kind of a troll from Treyarch, because first of all, we activated it here, and look how many zombies I got in my game. Like, what is that? That is just outrageous. So reducing zombie spawns seems like it doesn't really help you in those sorts of scenarios, but then also this can become a bigger problem during the exfil itself while you're waiting for the timer to run out, because there's fewer zombie spawns, so it's harder to get enough kills to actually hit your target zombie quota to finish the exfil. So in this game here, we died because there just weren't enough zombie spawns. So I'd say use Exit Strategy with extreme caution. Now the next one would have been Free Fire, but we already covered that. I pulled it out of order there. So our next one is going to be Hidden Power. This is our first Ultra Gobblegum on the list, and it upgrades your currently held weapon to Legendary Rarity. This means you can save, I think it's 8,500 salvage, going from a gray weapon all the way to a gold weapon. And I think the best time to use this is if you're grinding out camo challenges potentially, or you have a specific loadout weapon that you just really want to use, and it's obviously then going to start at gray rarity. Hidden Power can be a really lovely option in those circumstances. Also, if you're planning to go into a boss fight and you're like, okay, I've got to get set up for that boss and I don't want to spend a load more rounds grinding and things like that, that's a time where hidden power can be really effective too. Next is Idle Eyes. This is a legendary Gobblegum, and for 30 seconds, all zombies will ignore the player and stand idle, and I think this is incredibly well paired with the next Gobblegum on the list. So we're going to do a back-to-back one here, Immolation Liquidation, which is another legendary which spawns a fire sale power-up. And the synergy here is that often you'll get a fire sale, but then you'll kind of be running away from zombies and things like that, so you won't be able to get the max number of spins on that fire sale. But if you use Idle Eyes at the same time, you have complete serenity, clarity, peace of mind while you're hitting that mystery box. You can get your weapons out of it, and then you can resume your game. Another synergy for Immolation would be Respin Cycle, where you spin the box and then you really quickly respin it with Respin Cycle, but we'll get back to that Gobblegum in a moment. Next up is Indigestion, our first whimsical Gobblegum, and for 3 minutes, zombies killed will experience extreme flatulence, which essentially means zombies make this sound. So I guess it's a good one for trolling your friends. Next is Killjoy, which is a rare Gobblegum which spawns an insta-kill power-up. And I'd say this is really, really useful to use, for example, on your first Amalgam round, on round 16 on Terminus, or when you start getting your Abominations spawning in on Liberty Falls. And as I mentioned earlier, if you combine a Killjoy with a Who's Keeping score, which gives you a double points, these can gel together really well. Next is Near-Death Experience, and I think this is one of the best Gobblegums in the game, if and only if you play co-op. So it's an Ultra Gobblegum, it lasts 3 minutes or 5 revives, and it allows you to revive or be revived simply by being near other players, and the revived players keep all their perks. So this kind of works like a lot of different gobbles all in one, all squeezed together. And so in boss fights, especially if you've got teammates that are going down a lot, you can just continuously get them on their feet over and over again with this gobble. And that means that it's got amazing synergy with shields up, because if you whack shields up on, you're going to have much stronger armor, and so you can be that medic constantly running into the sketchy situation to get your teammate back on their feet. But again, we'll talk about shields up in a moment. Next, we have Newtonian Negation, which is a whimsical which lasts 3 minutes, and zombies killed fall straight up, which is fun. It's a returning one from Black Ops 3, and I love it. And it can also create some kind of funky effects when you mess around with certain Easter eggs in the maps as well. Next is Nowhere But There, which is an epic, and this instantly teleports you to a random downed player and instantly revives them, which is incredible because not only does it mean that you can kind of Phoenix up them, which we'll talk about in a moment, but you are also then there to cover their back while they get set back up. So for example, a really crazy synergy for this could be using Nowhere But There to instantly teleport to someone that's downed, and then as soon as they're back on their feet, you pop a free perk for them, which we'll talk about later in the video, and that helps them kind of get back in the race and fill any gaps that they might have lost for the fact that this Gobblegum doesn't keep their perks for them. And you could even pop your shields up before you do this so that you're even better prepared to escort them to wherever they need to go next, or just to safety once they've been revived. It's really strong, so I highly recommend this Gobblegum. Next is On the House, and I said we'd come back to this spawning a perk for another player thing. It's a legendary which does exactly that, and it's cool because you can give this perk can to everybody on your team. It's not just like one person picks it up and that's it. And so if you're making a perk can donation to a player that's been recently downed or something, you'll also get the benefit from that as well. Next is one of the most famous Gobblegums in the entire game. It's Perkaholic, the Ultra Gobblegum, which gives you all the Perka-Colas in the map. And I'd say the best time to use this is not necessarily when you might expect, because I think it's a really cool one to use early in a game on Liberty Falls. I know that's not the gameplay I'm showing you here, but early in a game on Liberty Falls, just because you can't get certain perks on Liberty Falls early in your game because their machines are not on the map. And so with Perkaholic, you can just get them straight away before the Wonder Fizz spawns in. So that's one use case. Or in a scenario where you return from bleed out mid-game, for example, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to buy all the perks again. Don't bother. Save your money for pack-a-punching and stuff and just pop a perker to get literally every perk all at once. Next is Phoenix Up, which I mentioned earlier on. This is a legendary and it revives all teammates who are downed and they keep their perks. It goes without saying, this is amazing for boss fights and it's insanely strong really just overall, but it's single use. And so something like Near Death, which has multiple uses associated with it and they'll keep their perks, is significantly better in my view. Next Next is profit sharing. This is an epic, and for this, a portion of the essence you earn is also received by nearby players and vice versa, and it lasts for 2 full minutes. So if you combine this with a well-timed double points or a temporal, like I talked about at the start of the video, you're gonna get so rich so fast. The fact that this gobbles in the game is so good because you can really do some amazing combinations with it, and I think it's extremely strong because of that. Next is Raindrops, which is an ultra gobblegum which spawns all the core power-ups at once. And so this has perfect synergy with Temporal because Temporal makes your power-ups last longer, which we'll talk about later, and you're getting all the power-ups here. So you'll get double time on your insta-kill, double time on your double points, etc. The nice thing about Raindrops as well is that it's also useful for multiple scenarios. So it might be a scenario where you need a lot of points, and so then you can get a double points and you can get double free money, the power-up, and you can get ammo so that you don't have to buy ammo and spend points on that, and you can get an insta-kill so that you can get those double points kills more easily, etc. But it's also giving you stuff that's good for wave clear and for slaying. So you're going to be much more powerful, obviously, with an insta-kill, but it's also going to give you that nuke and that max ammo to make best use of that insta-kill. So it really covers all the bases. Next is Respin Cycle. This is an epic, and it respins the weapon in the mystery box after it has settled to one of equal or higher rarity. This is really strong, and it's a great one to use during immolation because you can just instantly respin that weapon rather than having to wait for the gun to go away again or anything like that. And getting a weapon at higher rarity as well, and then combining that with crate power makes perfect sense, because then you know that you're upgrading a weapon that you can actually do a lot of damage with because it's already gold or it's already purple. Next is Shields Up. This is a rare, and this refills your armor on use, and your armor is twice as strong. It lasts for 3 minutes, and I think it's insanely powerful. This is crazy. It's so strong that your health is going to start being the limiting factor for the amount of damage you can take rather than your armor, which is always a very good sign because normally armor breaks in just a couple of hits. The fact that this is a rare as well is amazing because it means that you can pop it a lot more frequently. And I think that the scenario, like I mentioned earlier, of using a Shields Up and then popping something like a Nowhere But There to go get a crazy revive, or just going straight charging ahead into battle and getting a near-death experience revive, that's a perfect way to use Shields Up. Next is Soda Fountain. This is an epic which activates on perk purchase and means that that perk gives you an additional random perk as well. And I think the smartest way to use this is if you've got 2 fewer perks than the perk limit on a given map. So let's say a given map has 8 perks, right? If you've got 6 perks, that's a great time to use it because if you were to buy perk 7 and perk 8 is going to be extremely expensive because they get more expensive as you buy more perks. But if you use it when you buy perk 7, it's going to mean that you get that extremely expensive final perk for free. So you're just getting more bang for your buck. Next is Stock Option. This is a rare, and for this, for 3 minutes, ammo is taken from your stockpile instead of your magazine. And this is really good for boss fights, I would say, especially the Nathan boss. And it synergizes pretty damn well with Who's Keeping Score, which is a double points, and profit sharing, which we talked about earlier. It's essentially a poor man's free fire, and I'll never hate on Stock Option. I think it's really a wonderful gobblegum. Though, now that I say that, why am I calling a gobblegum wonderful? Like, what the hell, bro? Okay, moving on. Next is one of the most famous gobbles in the list, because I've mentioned it 17 times already. It's Temporal Gift. It's a rare. It activates on the next time-based power-up, and it means that that power-up lasts longer. And this is really nice because they've made it so that it activates when that power-up is deployed, instead of just having a window where it's going to be active. And that means you can pop it and let it sit there and just wait for that next power-up to come along. And this synergizes with so many other scenarios in game. I think this is maybe contender for one of the greatest gobbles of all time, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Next is Wall Power. This is a legendary, and for this, the next weapon bought off a wall comes Pack-a-Punched. This is really great to use with the next gobble in our list, which is also a legendary called Wall-to-Wall Clearance, where for 30 seconds, wall buys only cost 10 essence. And so that means you could buy a wall buy and have it be Pack-a-Punched just for 10 points. Like, that's a pretty good deal. Now, sadly, Wall-to-Wall Clearance doesn't affect the box, so you can't get a 10-point box spin from it, and you also can't use Wall-to-Wall Clearance to get a 10-point triple armor, for example. But hey, you can't have it all. These 2 gobbles are still very strong. Next is who's keeping score. I've mentioned this several times. It spawns a double points and it's an epic. And this is obvious, I think, when to use the double points. But generally, I'd really advise you to make sure you're using it when you get a big power boost. So you might want to do it, for example, just after you pack a punch, or obviously when you have an insta-kill active. And next is Wonderbar. This is an ultra, and for this, the next weapon from the mystery box will be a wonder weapon. And a smart way to use this is to build the jet gun, for example, on Liberty Falls, and then pop your Wonderbar to guarantee yourself a ray gun. And that's especially helpful in conjunction with crate power, for example, so that ray gun that you get is pack-a-punch straight out of the box. So let's group these up a little bit and put some in packs together that really work well. In each pack here, we're going to put 1 ultra, and then the rest will all be from the lower tiers. For medic / support, I would put near death as our ultra of choice because it's just one of the best in the game. And then it shields up for those clutch near death revives. Nowhere but there for scenarios where you've run out of near deaths because it's an ultra and they're damn expensive. And then Arsenal Accelerator to get a load more healing auras, and Phoenix up for those scenarios where you just can't get there to revive your team. In our Slayer pack, we're going to do Free Fire and Stock option, which I wouldn't use at the same time by any means, but both of those are going to mean that you can slay out really effectively. Wall Power and Killjoy, and our ultra for this is going to be Perkaholic or Hidden Power to upgrade that upgraded weapon you got from the wall, depending on your preference and playstyle. And our Hoarder pack is sort of for people that just like getting everything in the game. It's not necessarily about killing a load or getting your teammates revived or anything. It's just about getting stuff. So for this, our Ultra is Wonderbar, so you can get a Wonder Weapon, but then Crate Power, so you can upgrade that Wonder Weapon, then Wall-to-Wall Clearance, so you can buy a whole load of weapons, Wall Power, so you can get a whole load of upgraded weapons, and Soda Fountain, so you can get yourself some perks as well. Now, through all of these, I've said some are better and some are worse, but there definitely is a hierarchy where there are just a handful of gobbles in the game which are categorically leaps and bounds above the rest. And so what I've done is I've put together a ranking of every single Gobblegum from worst to best, and it's linked on screen right now. And some of them might kind of surprise you, even based on the info in this video. So give it a watch and let me know if you agree with my rankings.